and all that is in it. Offer to God a sacrifice of thanksgiving, and make good your vows to the Most High. Please be seated. I realized yesterday as I was starting to write that this is my last homily as a layperson. While my call to ministry ultimately leads to the presbyterate, the priesthood, on Saturday I will be ordained into the Sacred Order of Deacons, and I will spend about 6.5 months here with you, exploring and navigating the role and call of the deacon. For those of you who are able to attend in person or to view the live stream, on Saturday, you will see me swear an oath to interpret to the church the needs, concerns, and hopes of the world, and to show Christ's people that in serving the helpless, they are serving Christ himself. The deacon's role, in short, is to bring the world into the church and then to bring the church back out into the world. Within the church, deacons play a liturgical role. They bring the concerns and needs of the world into the church by leading the prayers of the people and by leading the people into the confession. They proclaim the gospel to the people. They bring the people's offering of bread, wine, and our own souls and bodies up to set the table, and they dismiss the people back out into the world. I got chills when I learned this in seminary. Do you know why we carry the gospel in when we process into the service, but at the end, when we recess out, we don't carry the gospel out? It's because we each carry the gospel with us. When we take it out into our communities, we become the gospel every week. When I first stumbled into those doors more than 20 years ago, I wasn't really looking for a way to change the world. I was like 23, you know? I was looking for community and connection. But I pretty quickly realized that Sunday morning, with the worship and Eucharist, were essential components to my health and well-being. There's just something in the prayers and the communal feast that nourished me the way nothing else could, and provided me the spiritual resting place I needed to deconstruct the rather unfortunate theologies of my youth. Bishop Taylor spoke last week about the shift between historical church attendance, going to church because you had to, and the spirit that draws people today to come to church. Bishop Taylor is right. Almost none of us has to be here. I mean, really just Neil and me and Kent. People on the rota, I guess. It is very likely that something has called us together today to gather us and unite us and make us into Christ's body, a gathered people who are getting ready to be sent out as ministers. Our liturgy and worship are beautiful as this gorgeous building we have inherited from our forebears. This is truly a church where we can come in, rest, and pray, as one of our previous rectors liked to say. But as the Eucharistic prayer reminds us, communal worship is not just for solace, but for strength. Not just for pardon, but also for renewal. We follow a God who does not desire empty sacrifices, but instead asks us to share steadfast love and mercy as widely and as freely as God does. In our gospel lesson from Matthew, we witness Jesus approaching Matthew at his tax collecting booth. Matthew's just sitting there, presumably doing his job, and Jesus does one of those, "Hey bro, greetings." and says 2 words, "Follow me." And Matthew gets up and follows him. My own call narrative is significantly more convoluted. When later asked to defend his practice of associating with tax collectors and sinners, Jesus shares a theological interpretation of what God wants for humanity and a values framework for his earthly ministry. Go and learn what this means. I desire mercy, not sacrifice. For I have come to call not the righteous, but sinners. This statement is immediately followed by 2 interconnected stories of people seeking healing, to which Jesus responds. The first is from a member of the synagogue who approaches Jesus directly to request that he would renew the life of his daughter who has just died. While they are on the way, a woman who has been suffering for 12 years with heavy bleeding approaches Jesus indirectly, having neither the power nor the confidence to approach him openly. She thinks to herself that it will be enough merely to touch the hem of his garment, and she has no expectation that he will even notice her. Contrary to her expectation, Jesus stops in place, turns to her, acknowledges her full humanity and her suffering, calls her daughter, and shares with her a holistic healing that restores her whole self, body, and spirit. It is only when she is well that he returns to his errand with the powerful man and restores the life of the little girl. If we only take away one message from these 3 little vignettes, according to Matthew, I hope it is this. When Jesus is in the presence of someone, he beholds them in their full humanity. He is not distracted by Matthew's tax collector status, nor by the supposed unworthiness of the sinners at his dinner table, nor by the powerful position of the member of the synagogue, nor by the bleeding woman's malady. As each of these people encounter Jesus, they are given the gift of being seen as creatures who are wonderfully and fearfully made by God, as image bearers. And from that deep respect for each of their humanity, Jesus brings about an incredible transformation in their lives. He calls Matthew into discipleship. He restores the life of the synagogue member's beloved child. He heals the bleeding woman and affirms her inherent value as a child of God. Too often in our world, we see the opposite. We see news pundits, politicians, and members of our communities use dehumanizing language to describe people, turning them into a boogeyman to stir up fear. The dehumanization of immigrants, in particular, has contributed to the evil of exploitation, as for-profit prisons detain people without regard for their constitutional rights. People who are documented and undocumented alike. For months, people have suffered in detention centers, notable for their callous disregard for their humanity, subjected to unsanitary conditions, insufficient food, unclean water, cut off from their families and legal support. Dehumanization leads to cruelty. Jesus calls us to live another way, to reject the fear-based impulse to other and vilify the stranger, and instead to be present to the humanity and the needs of every person we find on our path. That ethic is at the heart of our baptismal covenant, as we try, with God's help, to seek and serve Christ in all people and respect the dignity and humanity of every human being. On paper, it sounds easy. Love our neighbors as ourselves? No problem. but the reality of trying to live that way, trying to share God's own steadfast love and mercy the way God taught us to do, is very hard, even with God's help. We may shy away from the person standing at the side of the road holding a sign, just kind of letting our eyes slide over them, doing that polite thing where we pretend we can't see them. In our relationships, we may allow resentment to grow within us when we consider how very exhausted we are, how much we think we are doing compared to them. And we accidentally or on purpose ignore or overlook anything that does not fit our narrative of grievance. When you really come down to it, most of the problems in the world are caused by people unwilling or unable to see that the person in front of them, or to imagine that person halfway around the world, is as inherently valuable, as worthy as we ourselves are, not only of God's love, but also of ours. Following Jesus is hard, but we are not without resources. We are a community that gathers every week to ask for God's help, to pray for the world, and to acknowledge and ask forgiveness for the things we have done and the many, many things we have left undone. We practice gathering around the table and sharing a feast that we have not earned, but that is still graciously shared freely. We practice a growing awareness that we are intensely interconnected, that this community would not be the same without each one of us here, in person or online. Here at St. Luke's, we practice healing the world, changing the world, by sharing God's steadfast love and mercy, one welcome at a time. Thanks be to God.